All right, folks, I'm gonna get started. There might be folks who are still going to be joining us. I did post this on social media not too long ago, so we shall see. I just for some housekeeping things. After folks make their introductions and we get into the presentation regarding the resiliency project for the Watershop Dam, if you just, if you want to speak, just feel free to raise your hand in the queue and I will recognize you. I think this is literally like my first Zoom meeting outside of my 9 to 5 that I'm conducting. So I should know what I'm doing by now. But if we can, just for the record, just go around, maybe starting with Councilor Allen, and just state your name and what city department you're with or what entity that brought you here.
All right, this is Pete Garvey with the Department of Capital Asset Construction. We'll be the project managers for the construction portion and the design portion.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay, Tim Allen, City Council, Ward 7. Been very interested in this project because a lot of water shops is in Ward 7. And we've had a couple of meetings of people in Ward 7, and we've also met with City Hall people, Pete and others, several months ago. So that's my interest in the project.
Thanks, Councilor. Tina?
Tina Quagliato-Sullivan. I'm the city's Director of Disaster Recovery, and the funds that will support this project are federal National Disaster Resilience Funds. So my office is handling those funds. So that's really my interest in the project. Sure. And I've worked on a lot of the outreach and that sort of stuff.
Thank you. We'll go over to Tom.
Yeah, hi, Tom Jenkins. I am an engineer with GZA, and I'm working for Tina and Peter and the city at large.
Ellen?
Hey everyone, I'm Ellen Morehouse. I'm a Ward 5 resident, though I grew up in Ward 7 with Timmy Allen. Hey Tim, good to see you. Used to work for the city and very grateful for this project as a current abutter on the water to my new home where I live. So thanks for allowing a little bit of public comment.
Let me admit, excuse me, I think someone else is joining us. All right, did everyone have an chance to introduce yourselves? Okay. All right, so folks, just to give you some context around the meeting, of course, we're going to kind of dive into the plans around the resiliency project of the Watershop's pond. And then also this project, of course, has gained some attention from the local residents that this project would, of course, be abutting. So I know, Ellen, you sent out a proposal just for some remediation or, feasible, hopefully, remediation efforts that might be able to address while this is after, or we can get into that as well. And I know some of those, of course, involve DPW, which Chris, I believe, is not going to be joining us today. So we need to hold a subsequent meeting on that. We certainly can, okay? But yes, so it's great to hear about this project. I got word of it first, just through circulation of email, but I do know that we were awarded by FEMA some federal dollars. And I believe that the city will be also having to match or kind of, I guess, put up what the federal funding does not cover, is my understanding. So if maybe we can get some background on those dollars first, we can then jump into the project itself and the scope of the work. Tina?
So just to be clear, it is not FEMA funding. It is actually HUD funding. So it's a little bit different and their requirements are a little bit different. But I just wanted to be clear on that. And the city is also putting up, the city committed to $1 million in non-HUD funding to support the project.
Tina, can I just ask, just for some clarification, I know we also received, maybe I'm mistaken, the FEMA grant to improve the drainage around the South Branch Parkway. Is that in tandem with this project or no?
So that may be correct, but I'm not familiar with it. And what I could do is certainly touch base with Chris on that and get back to you.
Perfect. All right, yeah, so I'll just turn it over to maybe Peter to talk about the scope of the project, the timeline, you know, who the project might impact and any associated costs and what have you. So I'll give you the floor, Peter.
So I will say, actually, I think Tom Jenkins from GZA, who is our consultant, has some background information that he could give us. Tom, does that make sense for you to jump in now?
Yeah, I think.
Sure.
Tom, are you there?
I'll run through it fairly quickly. That's all right. I'll share my screen now.
Sure. I also will say we are joined by Council President Justin Hurst as well, who's on the call.
All right. So I am doing this via telephone, and I'm not sure I'm going to have the bandwidth, but can you see my screen?
Yes.
All righty.
Yes.
"34 reminders, though. Giving me stress just looking at it."
Well, which screen are you seeing? Are you seeing the slides?
The orientation screen, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So what we have is Watershop's Pond Dam, which is nestled in the inner portions of the Watershops complex at 1 Allen Street. And as you know, the Watershops and the dam and Watershops Pond were sold by the federal government. The Watershops went to private ownership, and then the pond and the dam itself were transmitted to the city of Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
So Watershop Pond and the dam make recreational benefits to the city and the surrounding area, and the resiliency improvements will revitalize the dam for coming generations. Essentially, the project objective is to support the continued existence of Watershops Pond by bringing the dam itself into compliance with the requirements of the dam safety regulations. Not to say that the dam is not in a good condition. It is in fair condition. It's safe, but many of its operating mechanisms are over 60 years old and have exceeded their useful lifespan. So this is a photograph from of the dam after the hurricane in 1955. The hurricane came through and ripped the top of the dam off. And of course, this was back when the federal government owned the dam. And they made some significant repairs to the dam, including a hinged crest gate at the top. This is kind of like
Tom, I think we might have lost you.
a flap on an airplane wing. It can get additional spillway capacity. Controlled by a hydraulic system in what we call a gate control house. On the left abutment of the dam, it's essentially like a concrete bunker that houses the mechanisms that control the gate. This is what it looks like on the outside. This equipment, when it was installed in 1957, was state of the art. But that was over 60 years ago, and it's very much exceeded its useful lifespan. There's no parts available for this equipment. It's being held together with string and duct tape, but it's doing its job. But it's certainly time to replace it, especially if we have a federal grant to do that. So this is another view here of the gate control house in the lower left corner. Access to that gate is through through the gate control house is you go through this little chain link fence gate here, top right corner, and you walk down a narrow path about 300 feet to the gatehouse. There's no way to get a vehicle down there. You can only get in by foot traffic, and that's part of the issue with maintenance and operation is it's just very difficult to get to. You know, when the federal government owned the building and the dam and the water and everything around here, I guess access was not that big of a concern. But now that private entities own the buildings and our only access is across through this gate, it's presented a lot of difficulties in the past. Now the retaining wall that supports this pathway in the lower left corner, you can see is in really poor condition. We're not sure when that was put in, but probably about 75 years ago. We're going to replace that wall as a part of the work, and in doing that, we're going to move it inward toward the pond by about 10 feet, which will provide vehicular access to the gatehouse, which will really improve the operations and maintenance at the structure. So in the lower right corner, you can see that the long yellow line, that's where the replacement wall will be, leading down to the red square, which is the gatehouse. In this view, flow is from right to left. The Mill River, you can see going under the building, going under Allen Street, and then Watershop's Pond would be to the right. Another big part of the project is these two penstocks on the right-hand side of the dam. That's where the water power used to go into the water shops. They had water wheels and then water turbines. And starting in 1920, I believe, the generator until the 1950s, I think, reliable, and they hooked into the grid for hydropower since the 1950s. So these penstocks represent a liability, so we're going to close those off permanently. Also, part of the project are these two low-level outlets. Those are at least 75 years old. They'll be replaced as a part of the project. And then there's a lot of stone masonry that needs to be repaired. Just like if you have a brick house, every 75 years or so, you need to repoint the brick. So that's a part of the project as well. And then for safety, we're looking at tying the dam down to the bedrock. It's not to say that it's not safe now, but under most extreme conditions, there's a potential for the dam to slide on that bedrock. So we're going to tie it down with some post-tensioned anchors. So as a part of the work, we looked at a lot of different alternatives for how to control the water during the work. And we looked at a temporary cofferdam kind of in the area of Harriet Tubman Park. But that's not the most practical or efficient approach. So we're going to conduct a full drawdown as a part of the work. And there's a lot of ancillary benefits to that. Water and sewer can maintain their infrastructure. Public Works can do the same. And there's a lot. It represents opportunity to remove trash and rubbish and that kind of thing, and removal of some of the tornado debris that still may be in the pond. We wanted to point out that drawdown has been done many times in the past. You can see here on the left in the 40s and the 50s and the 70s and in the 90s. I think as far as the public goes, this is probably the most visible part of the project would be the drawdown. And when we say a full drawdown, it's not a complete draining of the pond. The outlets to the pond that you can see here on the right-hand picture there, circled in yellow, they're not at the bottom of the dam. So if you open those all the way, it still leaves a small pool, about 20 acres in the footprint of Watershop's pond. It'll be about 4.5 feet deep at its deepest point. You can see this picture here from when the gates were opened in the 1940s. You can see that there's still a pond upstream of the dam. We conducted a bathymetric and side scan sonar survey of the pond this spring, and detected that there are several automobiles in the bottom of the pond. It's kind of strange to think that there could be half a dozen cars in there that nobody knows about, but they are there, and having the pond drawn down will present the opportunity to get those. They really shouldn't. We are in design right now and permitting. Let's see, we have had one public hearing with the Conservation Commission. We have a second one tonight at 5 o'clock. We should be completed with them in late August or early September. And then the bidding for the construction contract, we've already put one part of the work out to bid. That came back in July with favorable results for an early lead time item. And the actual general contract bid will go out to be advertised for bidding around 1st of January. Real construction won't start until the spring, but we do need to start the drawdown in October of this year for the reasons of protecting wildlife and that kind of thing. You don't want to do a drawdown when right before the reptiles and amphibians go into hibernation. You want to get the drawdown done before December so that they can make arrangements for that. There's been a lot of agency outreach pre-pandemic. We had meetings with DEP, we had meetings with Mass Wildlife, and meetings with the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act Office, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs down in Boston. And then after COVID, things have changed quite a bit, but Tina and her group, along with Peter, have done an amazing job of reaching out to the public. There's a web page on the city's website. Abutters have all been mailed letters, including frequently asked questions, both in English and Spanish. We've had at least 2 virtual Zoom meetings with Springfield College, and on and on and on. As I said mentioned earlier, we're undergoing review under the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. We filed an expanded ENF. We have been scoped for a single environmental impact report. We intend to file that with the state on August 31st. So again, next steps, we're working with the Conservation Commission to develop a wetland resource monitoring and mitigation plan. The drawdown of the pond will last for 18 months. So we're working closely with them to make sure that any impacts to the wetlands are minimized, and any that cannot be avoided, that we provide some mitigation for that. So that's it.
All right, Tom, I really appreciate that. I also just want to commend the team, everyone included. Who did some work on this to help vet the at this time, I will open it up to any questions. If any folks on the call have, outside of the team, have questions related to the project. I guess I'll start it off. One question I had was, in terms of the drawdown, how long is that going to take? And is there going to be any impact you see in regards to water shops that might impact traffic? Is there a study for traffic that needs to be done? I know you said that of course, the space is very tight over there. So any ideas around that? I know it might be a DPW question as well, but.
Well, the drawdown itself, we can't overload downstream areas, so it'll be fairly protracted. It'll probably take 4 to 6 weeks to draw the pond down. It could go a lot faster than that, but because we don't want to overwhelm downstream areas. You know, I don't see any impacts for traffic and that kind of thing. The construction work, there's not a lot of truck traffic or anything involved with that. There should not be any excessive noise or dust generation. you know, again, because it's kind of located in the interior to all of the Watershop's buildings, unfortunately, there won't be a whole lot for the public to see, again, other than the drawdown of the pond. And that's the most visible part, I think, from the public's perspective. So in terms of traffic impacts, you might get people going across Roosevelt Bridge. They may do some rubbernecking, but other than that, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, I will also say, you know, the city is looking towards removing some of those bulk items that you see, including the cars. And if we don't anticipate needing to utilize a butter's property to access them, but if we do, our intention is obviously to contact them beforehand, and if they will have any direct impacts, that they'll all be notified and that sort of stuff. And then the other piece that Springfield College as an abutter brought up was odor. And while we don't really anticipate strong odors, we do have a mitigation plan with a subcontractor to provide, and I think Tom Jenkins can go a little bit more into that, but around, like, my understanding is there's some sort of foam that can be sprayed to sort of mitigate any sort of odor that may last for a little bit.
Yeah, that's right, Tina. We at GZA, we do a lot of lake and pond work, and drawing down a pond or doing dredging work, there's always a concern for odors. And occasionally there can be odors for a day or two, but generally I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never seen a condition where odors were persistent for more than a couple of days. Mm-hmm. The Parks Department is the proponent of the project, and they'll be keeping an eye on things if there are that are smelling. They can just go out with a foam application that can be done that the city, that's used in landfills and that kind of thing. It's a non-toxic foam. It just kind of covers everything and keeps the odors from reaching the air. So that'll be a contingency plan, but we really don't think that's going to be an issue.
What I will say to the counselors in particular, and Ellen, who's also on the meeting, you know, we're trying to have one point of contact for residents. That would be me. So if they have concerns or there is something that's occurring that they have questions about, if you could sort of direct everyone to me, we'll make sure that everything gets filtered and folks get the response that they need.
Thanks, Tina. Counselor Allen?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Tom, first, great presentation, and I'm wondering if you can share those slides, not just in this meeting, but if you could email them around, or if that's okay. There are several people. I put together, Ellen, the next time I do this, you will be in the group, but I put together, I don't know, about 8 people or so. We met in January or February, and they're all butters and neighbors, interested parties, and I would love to be able to share those slides with them in a hard copy form.
So just to speak to that, they are available with Tom and mine and Pete's narration on the website that we set up. So the slides are there with the narration to go along with it, and the presentation is a little bit longer because it goes a little bit more significantly into the history of the dam.
Mm-hmm. And where is that, Tina?
I can email you the link.
Okay, great.
Sure.
That's great. I mean, this is a breath of fresh air to hear about this project being this far along. Pete, you know, I'm interested in it, and we talked about it, and great progress. I mean, and Tina, thank you for marshaling this thing to the point that it's at. You know, so it sounds like in a couple of years, you know, third quarter, fourth quarter, 2022, it will be done. One of my questions is, I'm sure there'll be others as we come along, but what will we have then? Like, will anything be done? I mean, it's a great potential recreational resource. Is there anything we can do while this is going on which improves its ability to be that resource? Like those cars, how did they get in there? As a way to block where cars could be driven in, or anything else? You know, I mean, we've all been wondering. We did a cleanup up at the I don't know what end of the most eastern end of the pond, about about 5 years ago. I was city councilor, and we had a big cleanup. We had 80 or 90 people. Al Schwalik was still running DPW. We had boat out there, and we were pulling from the Sullivan Park. You could actually see things through and coming through the water surface. So we removed that stuff. But that was a one-day Saturday operation in 2013, so 7 years ago, I'd say. So there's a lot of speculation that, you know, there's a ton of stuff in there from the tornado, half a cathedral and et cetera. Is there, once we do this, is there a way to minimize the chance of more stuff getting in there? I mean, short of a tornado, and to increase the recreational possibilities. You know, we've got a couple boat ramps and stuff, and I know those aren't pertinent necessarily to this meeting, but basically, are we saying that when this project is done, water shops will fill up again and we'll be ready to go forward with it in its beauty and for recreational purposes?
I will answer that. We're going to be looking for a lot of outreach because the maintenance is not covered under the HUD grant. So that's all city money that will need to be appropriated to clean the water shops out. I know Pat Sullivan is working on possibly securing some grants for a boat ramp. Tom has done tremendous work with Fish and Wildlife. They're interested in making sure they stock it. We're going to stock it as well for the fish. So I just want to point out that there's a lot of background that went into this as well. And with the permitting, and we're not done with the permitting. I mean, we've been working on this project since we got accepted into the program. I'm going to guess around 4 years. So there's a lot of background that's been going into it. And I know Pat's interested in making sure we get grants, and there's some interest in making an additional boat ramp. I'm not quite sure where yet. I don't know if he knows yet, or if Tom can expand on that. But the outreach is going to be big to clean this up, because it won't be just a contractor out there. We'll need some support from the neighborhoods as well. So I know we're going to do that outreach to get a couple of days where we can set up to 70 or 90. That's a lot of people, and that.
So I do think it probably makes sense for us to circle back around with Chris and Pat as well to see if they have any thoughts around what sort of mitigation or neighborhood things could happen while the pond is drawn down to prevent this sort of stuff from happening in the future. I would say that I don't think Peter or I have nearly as good a grasp on that piece as probably Chris and Pat do, because they sort of deal with the ongoing maintenance.
Okay, that's fine. It's a great opportunity for us, and there's a lot of neighbors who care about this. There's a lot of people that live on that pond, or really closely to the pond. But anyway.
I'm sorry. I will also say, Ellen and I did also talk about possibly organizing something with neighbors and the neighborhood organization going forward when she called as an abutter, just to express some interest and support overall for the project. So I do think that's something in the back of our mind, but definitely something that we need to move closer to the forefront as we're moving into the next phase of the project.
Yeah, no, that's great. But from a mechanical point of view, and I'm not an engineering guy, but the slides were terrific. They were easy to follow and easy to understand. So Tom, thank you for those slides. They're terrific. And thanks just in general for this. Counselor, when we're done with the meeting, be interesting to talk about what the next meeting is on this and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, and I certainly, just hearing the comments, think it's appropriate to call another meeting, including DPW and Parks and Rec as well. And Ellen, I will give you the floor now. Ellen, of course, there's a resident that reached out to me speaking about those remediation efforts that Tina had alluded to. So Ellen, I'll give you the floor to speak on those.
Hey, everyone. I can't thank you enough for this. The presentation was very clear. I'm super excited about this. Tina always answers my phone calls. You're a good sport. I really appreciate you. So I have written up somewhat of a little proposal here I'll share in the chat. I mean, and just sort of prefacing it by saying, like, I'm an incredibly pragmatic woman, right? All of these things require money. time, energy. I know all of that. But I think maybe the only one to mention on this call would be something that I saw an Australian town actually do, where they had trash traps on the end of the culverts that run into the water, and a plan for regular trash remediation of them. I'm actually at the other end. I'm in Pease Cove, and there's a small beach near us, Garvey Promontory, and it's actually owned by Springfield Conservation. I've had great conversations with Kevin Chafee. He's been super helpful, but I'm actually trying to get DPW to talk to Springfield Conservation for some trash pickup there, whatever it takes. If I have to buy a barrel, if I have to get the neighbors together to do it. We love this beach, but it's, you know, just sort of speaking to what Tim Allen said, it is regularly sort of just abandoned there. People come, they leave their trash, they do whatever. So as far as trash remediation and mitigating trash in the water, I think that's a huge concern for the neighbors. And then really sort of basic things like signage and illegal dumping. Like, what can we do to have a sign there in English and Spanish that says, you know, don't dump your trash? So trash traps and mitigating trash, of course, half the battle. But Tim, actually in this, I write that I propose, I want to help you. Let's do an Arbor Day cleanup next year, or a series of neighbor cleanups where we get the Springfield Civic Association, we can get all the neighborhood groups, whatever it takes to sort of corral folks around this. So while the city and HUD money is working at the other end of the dam, I think there's some neighbor work that we can do to corral real folks to help actually pick up some of the minimal trash that doesn't quite meet the requirements of cars, but is still oxidizing and going bad in the water and contributing to all of what we see, really. So I just like a blanket use to be like, please use me. I love this project. I'm very excited. I used to work for city housing, so I understand sort of what y'all are going through. But just that we've got a cadre of neighbors here that are very excited about this project and want to do whatever we can to support you folks.
Appreciate that, Ellen. Thank you. Counselor.
I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Tina, go ahead.
I'm just hoping Ellen could email me that proposal so we could take a look at what she's talking about.
Oh, I just put it in the chat of this, but I'll email it. Right, absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And I'll also, I did ask this already, but I'll have the clerks send out the proposal to folks who are probably going to be on the next call. And I'm also hearing that the Conservation Committee or a representative from there should also be there. I think that makes sense for in terms of talking about the trash pickup. So I'll make sure that it's certainly scheduled. So the time frame, I believe I heard the drawdown was going to be taking place in October. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And the intent is that it would be drawn down for 18 months. Okay. So there'll be plenty of time to organize.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I envision that we'll have a meeting. I'm sorry, Tom. Tom, are you there? All right, Councilor Allen, I'll pass it to you and see if Tom comes back to us.
Yeah, Ellen, I'd like to get a copy of your proposal. I haven't seen it in the chat, but at any rate, yeah, I think another meet. I'm not sure if you had a specific question for me, but if we could meet with DPW and Parks in the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, somewhere in there, but say by October 1st or something. Around then, that would be great. And then we could share these slides as we need to. And sooner would even be better, just while we got a little more momentum, but at least by October.
Yeah.
I'm psyched about this. I think it's, gives us, it touches so many neighborhoods in Springfield. It could be a massive win for there's just other cities just don't have a natural resource like this in the middle of the city. Hartford, Providence has their little river and stuff, which is nice, but just this lake has tremendous possibilities for people, and it's a great chance for us to try to engage many neighborhoods in trying to go help out with this. So thanks, this is great.
Thanks, Councilor Allen. Councilor Hurst, I know you were on the call as well. Did you have anything to share? Councilor Hurst?
Sorry, hello?
Okay, yes. Yep.
No, I was going to say, I echo the sentiments of Councilor Allen. I think this could be a tremendous boom for the city of Springfield. I think it could be a gem. I love the fact that the project is moving forward. And, I also love, Alan, certainly your support and willingness from community members to take part. I mean, I think this could be something special for the city of Springfield. So I'm all for it. And if there's something that we can do as a council, please let us know. And I look forward to attending the rest of the meetings. And thank you, Chairman Williams. I appreciate it.
And just a last piece of information, it's just in regard, so I think it's appropriate here to make a motion to kind of just add this subcommittee as a proponent of the project, especially with the drawdown being the kind of the most urgent action item. So Councilor Hurst, you can serve in that capacity, correct, to act as the second member of the subcommittee, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I can give you a quorum.
Perfect. All right, so I will at this time just make the motion that we sign on as a proponent of the project and pledge our support for the drawdown to take place in October, of course, which is the first step to the first phase of this project. So at this time, if I can have a second.
Second.
All right. So you have our support, and I, feel free to share that with your folks at 5 p.m. today. And also, I'm hoping just to end on some comic relief. I just hope that cars are the only thing that are at the bottom of that's what I will say. So
I'm gonna say it might not be comical, Councilor Williams.
I know.
Depending on what comes up.
Exactly. That's what comes to mind. So I really appreciate everyone for joining the call. And if there's any other questions that need to be circulated, feel free to include the folks here. And I will get on, I'm thinking within the next 2 to 3 weeks on scheduling the next meeting. And we'll make sure everyone gets that invitation as well.
Thank you. Thanks for calling the meeting. And thanks, Pete and Tina and the engineer, Tom, for doing the work you're doing. This is great. Thank you very much.
All right. And
Thanks for letting me join.